Before we get into today's edition of Just the Truth, let me tell you about the latest special from Mike Lindell at MyPillow. The standard MyPillow, normally $49.98 for a limited time only, just $14.88 with promo code Joey. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio listener specials, and see all the specials. There's a limited quantity of just 10 at this special price. That's $14.88 with promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. President-elect Donald Trump may have settled the question of whether House Speaker Mike Johnson is reelected this week. Yesterday, Trump offered his full endorsement of Johnson for another term to lead the GOP House majority. More Americans approve of the Trump 2.0 transition this time than in 2016 when Donald Trump moved into the Oval Office. We have those details for you. If you thought it seemed that the U.S. Congress was not getting anything done, well, you were right. The 118th Congress has passed the fewest laws in previous sessions since the 1980s. And a South Carolina man convicted in the brutal double murder of two bank employees in 2017 is asking for a, quote, compassionate release just days after President Joe Biden spared his life and commuted his death sentence.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but you know they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Monday firmly dismissed the peace proposal reportedly being floated by President-elect Donald Trump's team to end the war in Ukraine, criticizing its concessions to Ukraine's NATO aspirations. Lavrov expressed discontent with the Trump's team's alleged approach, which includes suspending hostilities along the current line of contact, delaying Ukraine's NATO membership for up to 20 years, and deploying European peacekeeping forces in the region. Lavrov said in a press conference, judging from numerous leaks and Donald Trump's interview with Time magazine, their idea is to suspend hostilities along the line of contact and transfer responsibility for confrontation with Russia to the Europeans. He further condemned the idea of postponing Ukraine's NATO membership, emphasizing Moscow would refuse to accept Ukraine's NATO membership regardless of the territorial factor, he said. He labeled NATO's potential expansion into Ukraine as an aggressive absorption and reaffirmed Russia's steadfast opposition to any idea that Ukraine would become a member of NATO. While Trump has kept details of his peace plan under wraps, he has reportedly considered deploying European troops to Ukraine while temporarily delaying NATO membership. Trump has also tapped retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg as his special envoy to Ukraine. Reports suggest that Kellogg may propose cutting off U.S. aid to Kyiv and ramping up military support for Ukraine's forces as leverage to push both sides into negotiation. Of course, we know that Joe Biden is trying to send as much aid, as much cash, as much arms support as he possibly can before leaving office. In his Time magazine interview earlier this month, President-elect Trump vowed not to abandon Ukraine, saying, I will end this war, but how I do that is something I will not reveal because the plan becomes worthless if I do. Lavrov's rejection reflects Russia's entrenched position, which the Institute for the Study of War, the ISW, says leaves little room for compromise. Moscow continues to demand Ukraine's neutrality, severe restrictions on its military capabilities, and even changes to its government. Russian President Putin, meanwhile, appears to be adopting a wait-and-see approach, with his aides indicating that he will not take the first step in reaching out to Trump regarding Ukraine. We're going to have a stare down here. Putin is going to try to back Trump into a corner. I don't think it's going to work. Trump's pledge to end the war in Ukraine faces some strong resistance from Moscow. Of course, Trump has said all along that he would deal firmly with Russia, even suggesting during the campaign that he might end the war before he even takes office. With the pushback that we have seen from Moscow, I'm not sure that's going to happen at this point. Moving on. Yesterday morning, Trump endorsed House Speaker Mike Johnson for another term and tried to settle the debate on whether or not Mike Johnson was going to have a challenge to his position as Speaker. The Daily Caller says Speaker of the House Mike Johnson may not be in the clear yet, despite getting a re-election endorsement from Donald Trump. Now, yesterday when Trump issued his pretty lengthy statement on Truth Social, he said the American people need immediate relief from all of the destructive policies of the last administration. Speaker Mike Johnson is a good, hard-working, religious man. He will do the right thing, and we will continue to win. Mike has my complete and total endorsement. Make America great again. Obviously, this was done in hopes that it would quiet some of the opposition that was building, primarily from the Freedom Caucus, against Speaker Mike Johnson because of how he handled the continuing spending, the continuing resolution, the spending bill, just a couple of weeks ago. The conservatives in the U.S. House were not happy with that. They weren't happy with the idea that he came to them with a 1,500-plus page bill full of pork, primarily from the Democrats. Trump can't afford to have a fight over Mike Johnson in the next couple of weeks, and I'm sure that's what he's trying to avoid. The Daily Caller writes, since Johnson mishandled a government shutdown fight 2 weeks ago, he's had to gain back the trust of several members of his own party. Johnson will have a 219 to 215 majority for the Speaker's election, meaning he can only lose one vote to keep his job. While he has the support of all House Republican leadership, there are still some Republican members who say Johnson will need to do more to earn their votes. After Trump's endorsement of Johnson yesterday, the Daily Caller reached out to nearly a dozen House Republicans who had previously been undecided on Speaker Johnson's future. Arizona Representative Andy Biggs, for example, told the caller that he is not committing yet. Texas Representative Michael Cloud's office said he had no comment at this time, and Colorado Representative Lauren Boebert's office gave the same answer. Meanwhile, Indiana Representative Victoria Sparks issued a statement saying that although Trump's endorsement is important, she still needs assurances that Speaker Johnson will not sell us out to the swamp. She added, President Trump will be able to save America only if we have a speaker with courage, vision, and a plan, also public commitment to the American people, how he will help deliver President Trump's agenda to drain the swamp. Sparks has claimed Johnson often doesn't even talk to Republicans during the legislative negotiations and has questioned his leadership. She recently made headlines for saying that she will not participate in the House Republican caucus or be a part of its committees. And that's been the criticism of a lot of, or I should say some, of the more conservative factions in the U.S. House, that he did not consult them when he allowed the Democrats to take a continuing resolution from 20-plus pages to over 1,500. Those 1,500 pages were full of pork projects. Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett, according to the caller, and Missouri Representative Eric Burleson, Arizona Representative Eli Crane, Tennessee Representative Andy Ogles, Florida Representative Greg Steube, Georgia Representative Andrew Clyde, and Pennsylvania Representative Scott Perry are among the other Republicans who say they're still on the fence, still not ready to commit to Speaker Johnson, and the vote is expected to take place on Friday. Thomas Massey from Kentucky kind of led the way when on December the 18th he said that he would actually oppose Johnson's bid to remain Speaker and would vote for another candidate. He doubled down on that decision even after President Trump's endorsement yesterday. Again, I don't know who Massey proposes to support. He hasn't named anyone. He's just said that he would vote against Johnson and would vote for someone else. And until that someone else comes forward, we don't know who that might be. Your comments are welcome. You can text me. You can email me, Joey at joeyhudson.com. You can leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Just leave me a voice message. Let me know what you think about this. Do the GOP need to coalesce around Mike Johnson? We talked about this a bit yesterday. Can we afford a fight for the speaker's position at this point in the game? Again, we need a speaker in order to certify the votes for Donald Trump and move on to the inauguration. I'm not quite sure what happens if we don't get a speaker. If that puts us in the delay mode. Now surely, and somebody help me out here, surely the GOP leadership would not allow us to get to the point that it would delay the inauguration, would they? Somebody reassure me here. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. If you've been putting off a visit to PhD Weight Loss, now's your time because it comes with an amazing free gift. Joey Hudson here. During December, the founder of PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas, is giving the first 100 people to sign up for a consultation a free weight loss and energy supplement bundle. What a great gift. Do what I did. Take control now before heading into the indulgent holiday season. Get a grasp and avoid the holiday pounds. I dropped over 30 pounds and I'm not worried about parties and overeating because my PhD coach taught me coping mechanisms to help me enjoy holiday events without gaining the weight. Best of all, I never took a weight loss drug. I'm not dependent on a prescription. And I was never hungry. PhD Weight Loss is not about depriving yourself. Lose the awful belly fat, gain energy, and avoid weight-related health issues. You will feel so amazing about yourself and truly enjoy the holiday season. PhD Weight Loss. Ask about the free gift when you book your consultation. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or go to myphdweightloss.com. As we bring in the new year tonight, this is a time that we reflect on what we experienced this past year. And boy, was it a busy year. Was there a lot going on, right? Let's be blunt. 2024 was probably the worst year ever for legacy media. And it's not even close, I don't think. Joe Concha wrote for the New York Post and compared some of the top moments. He said, "We were told things that we all witnessed or heard didn't actually happen. But Americans knew better, and the gaslighting got increasingly hysterical as the year went on." He wrote, "Amid the relentless madness, some egregious examples deserve a special mention. As if we staged an annual tournament of media malfeasance and meltdowns, my bracket would peg these as the final four of 24. And he starts with number 4. He calls it cheap fakes. He wrote, "When President Biden wandered off from a group photo shoot with other world leaders in June during the G7 summit in Italy, the clip understandably went viral. The worrisome walkabout followed several instances of Joe Biden shaking hands with the air." And we all remember those, don't we? Where Joe Biden got confused either on the stage or in a group. The one image of him standing there by himself as if he's shaking someone's hand and that someone wasn't standing there. Concha says sharing conversations he had with long-deceased world leaders and forgetting the names of his own cabinet members. But the media insultingly told us that all these videos were actually cheap fakes. It was misinformation. Brian Stelter, CNN's chief media correspondent at the time, said, "Some of us are watching long completed speeches by the president. Others just watching short, out-of-context clips on social media. Two audiences are seeing two very different reflections," he said. Brian Stelter, how he could defend this when we all saw Joe Biden do some of these things. The Washington Post pontificated that the deceptively edited videos that misrepresent events simply by manipulating video or audio or by leaving out context were staples of Republican attacks against Joe Biden. Wow. Concha writes 2 weeks later, when Biden's brain turned to applesauce again during his debate with Donald Trump, the narrative collapsed. Number 3 on his list, policy flip-flops are irrelevant. Yes, Kamala Harris was on video in 2019 saying that she opposed fracking and wanted to ban all offshore drilling. Also, she compared ICE agents to the KKK while calling former President Donald Trump's border wall medieval. And she supported U.S. taxpayer dollars for imprisoned illegal migrants' sex change procedures. These are all unpopular positions that Harris flip-flopped on, every single one of them. She suddenly had a different position on these policies. Concha writes, but our media insisted that defeating Trump was far more important than questioning or even noting it. Writing for The Atlantic, conservative Tom Nichols wrote, in the 2024 election, policy details matter even less than they usually do. Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, seem to have figured this out. Over at ABC News, Ana Navarro argued that Harris had absolved herself of conflict via limited interviews with ultra-friendly outfits. She said she's doing The View live. She's doing The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. She's doing The Howard Stern Show. She did 60 Minutes. She did Call Her Daddy, Navarro exclaimed with a straight face. What more do you want? I mean, they guarded and tried to protect Kamala Harris like no one had ever protected you would have thought that they were all on the payroll, and maybe they were. Concha writes, none of the above attempts to explain her new policy position swayed voters, though. And he's right. Voters saw right through this. Then he uses example in number 2, the Madison Square Garden rally that Trump had in those final days in October during the campaign. Concha writes, Trump's October rally at the world's most famous arena should have been covered as a condensed sequel to the Republican National Convention. The standing room only crowd heard from Trump, J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and a bipartisan cast of supporters. But the usual suspects in the press maintained its true message was an appeal to Nazism, because Nazis held a rally at the Madison Square Garden 85 years ago. The Washington Post headlined it, saying, another night at the Garden, how Trump's rally echoed one in 1939. The Trump campaign's rally in New York mirrored one in the 1930s that was openly supportive of Adolf Hitler, with 2 dangerous differences. MSNBC anchor Jonathan Capehart rolled footage from that long-ago event as part of his coverage of Trump's perfectly ordinary campaign experiences. Capehart exclaimed, that jamboree happening right now in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the Garden for a so-called pro-America rally. Wow. Concha writes, considering Trump's staunch support of Israel and Democrats' 4-time use of the Garden for their own national conventions, these takes were simply pathetic. But the instance that got the number 1 rating on Joe Concha's list, number 1, sexism and racism, calls Kamala's loss. And his first example is former Obama strategist David Axelrod, who on CNN said this.
You know, I'd love to hear from Van on this, but let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country. And anybody who thinks that that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong. I'm not saying that was the main reason that Kamala Harris lost and Donald Trump won. And I think they ran honestly, strategically, his campaign. And I've said it many times. They ran a very smart campaign.
And it gets better as he points out that Sonny Hostin on The View had this to say about it.
Very difficult for people to believe that racism and misogyny, they're just alive and well. I think that we don't want to think that about ourselves, our neighbors, our friends, but it's my lived experience tells me that it does still exist.
Concha makes a good point. What's weird about this argument is that if sexism and racism did in fact lead to Kamala Harris's loss, why was she roundly rejected by Democrat voters in 2019? Were they racist and were they sexist as well? talked a good bit over the past week or so after Joe Biden announced the clemency of 37 federal death row inmates. One of those was a South Carolina murderer, Brandon Council. He was convicted and sentenced to death for the 2017 double murder of 2 bank employees in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. He has now filed a motion for compassionate release, citing psychological harm from years in solitary confinement. Here's the story. Counsel was convicted in 2019 of killing Donna Major, 59 years old, Catherine Skeen, 36 years old at the time, during a Crestcom bank robbery in Conway, South Carolina, which is the Myrtle Beach area. The chilling crime, which included Counsel admitting to law enforcement that he entered the bank intending to kill. This led to his death sentence. However, Joe Biden's clemency decision has now commuted his sentence to life in prison without parole. Counsel's latest motion argues that his confinement conditions amount to torture, seeking a release that has further fueled the outrage among victims' families and critics of Biden's decision. Within a day or so of Joe Biden making the announcement that he had offered clemency to this double murderer, the Donna Major's family spoke out and said that they had been pleading with the Biden administration Justice Department upon learning that this decision was potentially going to be made, and that the Biden administration basically gave them a 10-minute Zoom call, and that was it, and obviously ignored what they had to say because they don't want this man to be on the face of the earth. They want the death sentence that a jury of his peers gave him in 2019 upon the conviction. Counsel's latest motion, again, arguing that it has been torture to him because of the confinement conditions in prison. As you can imagine, upon hearing this, the families are once again expressing their anger and their disappointment and their concern that somehow this guy, even with Joe Biden's commuting his sentence to life in prison without parole, that somehow this crazy justice system of ours might actually turn this guy loose. Donna Major's daughter, Heather Turner, called Biden's decision hurtful and frustrating, especially as it was made without consulting the affected families. Her husband, Danny Jenkins, recounted the brutality of the murders, emphasizing the lack of mercy shown to the victims. Jenkins stated during a televised appearance on Fox News, he watched them like prey, gave no warning, and showed no remorse. How does this man deserve leniency? Biden administration critics have seized upon the clemency decision as emblematic of what they view as the Biden administration's leniency towards violent offenders all along. On day one, you may recall, Joe Biden stayed any or delayed any, stopped federal execution of inmates on the federal death row. South Carolina Representative Russell Fry called the move shameful, asserting that it disrespects victims' families and undermines public safety upon learning that Joe Biden had offered the clemency to counsel. President-elect Donald Trump also weighed in, you may recall, promising to end the Biden-era moratorium on federal executions. The problem is there's only 3 left. There are 40 individuals, 40 people convicted of heinous crimes and had been sentenced to death. Joe Biden commuted 37 of those. On Truth Social, Trump lambasted the commutations, calling them a slap in the face to victims' families. Counsel's motion for compassionate release adds another layer to the controversy, as you can imagine. Legal experts highlight the importance of evaluating humane treatment for prisoners. Critics argue that granting such a motion would further trivialize the severity of his crimes, which it would. Advocates of Biden's clemency decisions emphasize the moral and systemic issues surrounding the death penalty, and that Joe Biden, as a Catholic, cannot support the death sentence. Opponents like former federal prosecutor Danny Coulson argue that the move creates an imbalance of justice, allowing the nation's most violent criminals to escape the ultimate punishment. I can't imagine that this man could somehow find a way, take the next step. So Joe Biden starts the ball rolling, offers him clemency from the death sentence, and now he's asking the court to release him because of psychological harm that he has suffered in solitary confinement. You know, that's kind of the idea of prison, isn't it? To be punished for what you did. Think about the psychological harm of the victim's family. But again, even though we were promised, when we learned of Joe Biden offering clemency, we were promised that these people would still never walk out of the prison. As crazy as things are, I'm fearful that somehow the system will allow them to do so. Speaking of Joe Biden, we've talked some too about the amount of vacation time that he takes. I wish I had a job that allowed me to take as much vacation time as Joe Biden. The Daily Caller has done a review of White House pool reports of where Joe Biden was at particular times and how many days away from the White House he actually has taken during his presidency. 24% of the time he was in Delaware, at Camp David, or in vacation spots, according to their report. Biden spent 89 full and partial days out of the White House in 2024, not counting days that he was taking foreign trips for official business. The president's time out of the office, according to the Daily Caller, increased after he dropped out of the presidential race, spending a total of 46 full or partial days in Delaware, Camp David, St. Croix, which he's did over the holidays, Nantucket, and California from August to the end of the year. Look, I'm not sure we can blame him, can we? He saw that he was going nowhere. Wasn't he was winding down his presidency, so hey, why not enjoy yourself? It's not like he was accomplishing anything anyway, right? The Daily Caller's count includes the president's current trip, of course, to St. Croix, which the White House has not released the end date yet. In 2023, the president stayed until the 2nd of the next year, so we can probably count on Joe Biden being there through at least January the 2nd into the new year. It also does not include one trip the president took to Camp David to prepare for the first presidential debate, during which he stayed out of the public eye for nearly a week. The preparation didn't seem to help, though. He failed miserably, and that's why his own party booted him off of the ticket. The Daily Caller did not count Biden's trip to Delaware to recover from COVID-19, during which he also was not seen for a week and dropped out of the presidential race via Twitter. So that's another, 2 weeks almost, if you added those together? I'm not sure that he should get credit for being at Camp David preparing for a political debate, should he? In August, Biden spent 21 days away from the White House, visiting Delaware for 14 full or partial days and taking 6 days at the $37 million private residence of Joe Kiani in California. An additional day was spent at Camp David. Throughout the entire year, Biden took 27 trips to Delaware. During his annual trip to Nantucket, the president stayed at David Rubenstein's $34 million residence. You got to give it to him when he has great taste when he's on vacation at these places. I mean, a $34 million residence here, a $37 million residence there. That's a pretty good life if you can get it, isn't it? Bates explained to the caller that Biden works around the clock and has taken few vacation days, citing a list of supposed accomplishments as evidence. And that's the crazy thing. The White House spokesperson, Andrew Bates, told the caller, "It's a little ironic to be fleshing this out for an internet-based outlet, but commanders-in-chief have been able to perform the full range of their duties from anywhere in the world for decades. For example, President Biden was in Delaware when he secured an international deal that brought wrongfully detained Americans like Evan Gershowitz and Paul Whelan home. Now, they want us to believe that Joe Biden is just as effective when he's at Delaware or Camp David or any place else at the beach, that he's just as effective as if he were in the Oval Office. Of course, we know that Joe Biden's not effective regardless of where he is, so I'm not sure that we really should matter, should we? Or that we should care. Mr. Bates capped off that response to the Daily Caller by saying, and now record holiday sales, Merry Christmas, as if Joe Biden was responsible for record holiday sales during Christmas. The caller says during some trips, the White House pool reports, which give updates on calls and meetings the president conducted throughout the day. Occasionally, the president would answer shouted questions from the press while out of the office. We know where that got him, too. Biden's time out of the office has decreased from the past 2 years. A 2022 Daily Caller analysis showed that the president spent nearly 40% of the year in Delaware in 2022. In 2023, Biden spent 37% of the year at a vacation spot, a New York Post analysis found. And according to the Republican National Committee research account, as of December 26, Joe Biden has spent 570 days of his presidency on vacation, which, of course, is 40%. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. On the text line, yesterday I told you about the robber whose handwriting was so bad that the teller couldn't read it, and she didn't even know she was being robbed. Well, Susan in Hartwell texts me one that's even better. She writes, what's even funnier than the illegible note handed to the teller at the bank in Loveland, Colorado, was the note handed to the teller at a bank in Atlanta when my brother was in charge of security. The robber wrote the note on a deposit slip from his own checking account with his name and street address on it. The police went straight to his house and arrested him. Well, Susan, you're right. That wins the prize for the dumbest crook, because the only thing that could be worse than the guy giving an illegible or a note that you can't read is to do it on your own deposit slip to lead the police right back to your home. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate your text. Faye writes, Joey, it's sad to say, but Biden and Harris have been puppets. Somebody else has pulled their strings. So no good legacy for Biden. Come on now, Faye. Are you going to rob Joe Biden of his legacy? She writes, this regime has all but made the USA a third world country while they've lined their own pockets. Good riddance. Let's look to Trump and a better future. I can agree with you on that, Faye. January 20th can't get here fast enough. Ray writes, good day, Joey. All the news is about Jimmy Carter. I think he was a solid Christian man with good intentions. However, his political position was definitely left of center. We must examine his actions as president before we canonize him. I lost my mother the day after Thanksgiving at the age of 100. Wow, Ray, I'm sorry to hear that. She was also a rock-solid Christian and firm believer in the constitutional government of our republic. She was never a national figure. However, all who ever came in contact with her had no doubt as to her Christian beliefs or her conservative political beliefs. I'm sure that both are in the arms of Jesus now. God bless the USA. And I'm sure you are so right, Ray. And again, Sorry for the loss of your mom. But wow, 100 years old. Wow. Texter, hey Joey, it's Jennifer. Hopefully Trump's endorsement will bring the House together on the issue of Mike Johnson continuing in his role as Speaker. We don't need to repeat Republican circus over who gets the gavel. You're right on that, Jennifer, for sure. Your comments are welcome as well. You can text me. You can email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. And again, a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY. Just call 864-477-5639. Leave your message. And always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com and place your order, whether it's the slippers, which have a great sale. I just got my new pair in, by the way. You know, I love my slippers, and Jessie, my Cocker Spaniel, does as well. The slippers typically don't wear out, and mine would not have if Jesse had not kept putting his ball in, and then he kind of chews on them to get them out. I was able to pick up a pair for $59.98 when I used my own promo code Joey. They're typically $119.98. Mike Lindell has extended that Christmas extravaganza through the end of the year. So get your 6-piece towel set. They're back in stock, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. So go to MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4059. And again, your messages are always welcome on the MyPillow message line. So MSNBC host Rachel Maddow admitted that she misjudged the American public's reaction to Republican Vice President-elect J.D. Vance. You think? Saying that she believed his controversial rhetoric and ideological influences would be more unnerving to voters. Now, that just shows you how out of tune she is, doesn't it? Why would she think that? Why would she think that J.D. Vance would alienate the average American? She said she told Semper Four in a reflective piece where various media figures analyzed their predictions and assumptions this past year. She said, I thought people would be more unnerved by J.D. Vance. She cited his cat lady comment, which didn't really take off like they thought it would be. Vance, of course, a best-selling author and former venture capitalist. He was on the fast track as a freshman U.S. Senator representing Ohio and quickly became Trump's favorite. Initially, like Maddow, most of the mainstream media had some skepticism about J.D. Vance. But he quickly proved to be a very formidable national political figure. His strong performances in interviews as Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate, his debate performance against Democrat Tim Walz earned him accolades as one of Trump's most effective communicators. And while progressive media outlets criticized his selection, Vance's ability to connect with the average voter and defend Donald Trump's policies really played a huge role, I believe, in the ticket's success. And the best part is he's a young man. He's positioned himself as a leading figure in the Republican Party's future. You agree? I mean, many already are speculating about a 2028 presidential bid by J.D. Vance. Now, Maddow's comments were part of this publication, Semaphor's broader effort to gather reflections from journalists and public figures on their most egregious 2024 miscalculations. Some underestimated Vance's political appeal. Others misjudged broader cultural and economic dynamics. I mean, nobody saw it coming. They all thought that we were buying this agent of change known as Kamala Harris. They all thought that the American people were falling for the woke rhetoric of the Democrat Party. But they really did misjudge the culture that the Democrat Party was trying to push on us, the economy, the role that inflation has played, and, of course, our open borders. Among the contributors in this, the Bulwark host Tim Miller acknowledged being overly generous in assessing President Biden's political strategy. Entrepreneur Mark Cuban admitted, I was wrong about the election outcome. Mark Cuban finally admits that he was wrong. At 40, again, J.D. Vance will be the third youngest vice president in U.S. history. And this was a pretty quick rise for him. Being elected to the U.S. Senate just a few years ago in Ohio, and now he's going to be the vice president. And isn't it kind of sweet to hear the mainstream media, people like Rachel Maddow, admitting, hey, I got that one wrong. I underestimated J.D. Vance. I overestimated the appeal of Kamala Harris. Isn't it just kind of nice to hear them say that, to hear them admit that they're that far out of touch with the American people? And did I read the other day where Rachel Maddow and some of the MSNBC hosts are having to take a pay cut because their ratings are down big time? And when your ratings are down, that means your ad revenue is down, and these networks can't afford to keep paying you these big salaries. Maybe they all should be paid based on performance. Maybe they all, which they are to a degree, I guess. I guess, you know, there probably are some bonuses factored in for certain ratings. But wow, you know, there's rumors, and they're probably just that, rumors, but there's been speculation that Elon Musk may buy ABC, for example, and turn it into a conservative TV network. Wouldn't that be fun to watch? Wow. They got it wrong, and I have to give Rachel Maddow, at least, credit for admitting that she did get it wrong. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.